Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Henna. I'm a self-improvement and trauma coach as well as a content creator. And in this video, we are going to be talking about Istikhara. Now, a lot of people have heard about what Istikhara is. Some people know what it is, but they have a lot of misconceptions around it. But it's really important that we get clear on exactly what Istikhara is because it is one of the most important tools you have as a God-conscious Muslim to use in making decisions. So, what is istikhara for those of you guys don't know? Istikhara is basically the process that a believer is supposed to go through when they are making a big decision. So scholars vary on what defines a big decision, but think of things like something that's going to really change the trajectory of your life. The person you're going to marry, the job that you want to take, a place that you're going to move, when you're making a big financial decision. This is the process that we take. Istikhara is a dua. It is a specific dua in Arabic that we are instructed to say during the time that we're making that decision. So let's first talk about kind of the process of istikhara. How does that go? So when you are making a big decision, whatever the decision is, there are steps to take. You don't just want to jump into the decision. Obviously, you don't want to just jump into istikhara. There's a particular order that you're supposed to take. Step number one is obviously you as just an individual, and we all should do this with a certain degree of intentionality, is you're going to look at your options and weigh those options out. Go through the pros and cons list, think about what's going to benefit you, what do you want from whatever decision it is, what's good about this decision, what harms will come if you take this decision, what are the other options. So you really just go through the pros and cons list. Once you've done that, usually you'll find, in most cases, your heart's going to incline towards one thing or another. But you don't want to just jump at a decision at that point. The next thing you're advised to do is something called Istikhara, which is basically consultation. In Islam, you're advised to go seek out other people, especially people who, one, you trust, two, they care about your well-being, and three, you know that maybe they've made good decisions in their lives. And you want to consult them on the decision. Tell them what's going on, give them the details of, the background, and tell them the options that you're looking at. Go ahead and take into account what they have to say. A lot of people typically will do this with family members. You might do this with friends. In certain cases, it might be good to go consult an expert in the field. Maybe you're consulting a lawyer, or you want to go, consult a counselor. Whatever it might be, seek the people who you know have the actual legitimacy to be able to help you in your decision making. Number 3 is the istikhara portion. So let's go into more detail on istikhara. Istikhara, as a dua, there's a very specific wording to it. And inshallah, I will link in the description of this video a place you can go to read the dua. But the dua basically, in translation, goes, "O Allah, I seek your counsel through your knowledge, and I seek your assistance through your might, and I ask you from your immense favor. For verily you alone decree our fate, while I do not, and you know while I do not. And you alone possess all knowledge of the unseen." So the beginning portion of the istikhara dua is actually something we can take note from, because it's exactly how all of our du'as should start, even du'as that we're making from our own heart. It starts by acknowledging the need that we have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and speaking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities and his favors upon us, right? In a situation where you're going to make a big decision, and everyone's going to have a big decision they make in their life, you want to recognize that you very easily could do something that ends up being extremely disastrous for you. And the best course of action is that you are seeking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows exactly what course of action, if you take this course of action or that course of action, which one is going to benefit you the most and which one is going to harm you the most, what the outcomes are going to be. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also the one in situations where maybe you're trying really hard to do something and you're finding a lot of blocks and a lot of walls coming up. Allah is Al-Qadir. He's the one who is able to open those doors for you. So that is part 1 of the dua. Part 2 is just kind of the straightforward asking, "Oh Allah, if this is good for me, or if this is bad for me, do this and that." "Oh Allah, if you know this matter," whatever the matter is. This is a point in the dua where you say, so, "Oh Allah, if you know this matter of taking X job, or moving to X city, or putting a down payment on X property, is good for me and good for my religion, good for my deen, my life and my livelihood and the end of my affairs, my present and future, then decree it for me and facilitate it for me, and then place blessing for me within it. So that's a really beautiful part, right? You are saying, like, this is basically the thing I'm inclined to. If, oh Allah, you know that this is going to be good for me in my deen and in my dunya, then please open up the opportunity for me and also put blessing in it for me. The second part goes, where is it? And if you know this affair to be harmful for me concerning my religion, my life and livelihood, and the end of my affairs, then remove it from me and remove me from it, and decree for me what is good wherever it may be, and make me content with it. There's such interesting wording here. So we're being told to say that if this is something that is actually going to be harmful to me and harmful to my deen, then remove it from me. Meaning, Allah, like, take this thing away. Close the doors, get rid of the opportunities, take it away. But not only that, we're being told to say, remove me from it. And this is a really important aspect to think about, because one thing we tend to forget when it comes to big decisions, it's easy to think about the big decision when you're not actually making it. But when you're in it, there's always a lot of emotion involved, especially when there's a lot riding on the decision. One place we see this very often is when it comes to falling in love and thinking about wanting to marry someone. So this is why that part of the dua even exists. Remove me from it is basically us asking Allah to also take it out of our hearts. Give us a certain emotional distance, because when you have emotional distance from something, you can make a decision with a lot more clarity. Whereas if you are extremely emotional in the decision making process, then you're not going to necessarily be thinking about what truly is the best for you in your deen and in your life, and what's going to have the best long-term outcomes, because you're looking for immediate satisfaction with whatever it is, and your emotions are driving you towards that. And at the end, we are also asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to just get rid of this thing, but to replace it with something better. So that is the dua. So how do you do istikhara? When you are actually doing istikhara, do you just make the dua? Can you say it in your head? Do you have to say it out loud? Can you say it in English? So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go make wudu and you pray 2 rakat. Just 2 rakat, okay? Some people argue over what chapters of the Quran you should read in them, but in reality it doesn't matter. You just need to pray 2 rakat. Once you have completed the 2 rakat and you've done, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, what you're gonna do next is read that dua. Now you should read the dua in Arabic, and there are a lot of resources for if you struggle with Arabic with transliteration, and it'll show you exactly at what point to talk about the decision, right? What the matter is. And you can say that part in English, but you're going to read that dua. After you read that dua, you make a decision. Now, you're already finding that you're inclining towards something. We already know that, right? You probably are taking note of there's something you more particularly want to do. You make the decision and you really kind of throw yourself into it. Don't be hesitant. Don't be like, maybe. Don't just sit around waiting for something to happen, but go for the decision that you want to make. In the instance that this is a thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for you, and it follows the line of the dua, that's something good for you in your dunya and in your deen, and there's blessing in it for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open the doors of it for you. Allah is going to make it easy for you to achieve it. You're going to see things happening that very much align with this being something that you should do. On the opposite hand, if this is something that is not good for you, if this is something that is actually going to be harmful to you, you're going to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closing the doors. Things are going to get very difficult for you. You might find yourself in a lot of confusion. You might find yourself, you're trying and trying, you're putting all your effort into it, but there's no fruitfulness coming from it. Those are signs as well. Now, let's talk about the misconceptions around istikhara, because there are a lot. One thing to know is that istikhara is something that is also very known in a lot of cultures as well, Islamically influenced cultures. And whenever you have something that is very well known in Islamic cultures, what ends up happening is that you are going to get cultural myths that develop around that thing. So people start thinking, hey, I'm supposed to have a dream, or I'm supposed to see certain colors with my istikhara, or if you're supposed to pick something out of a hat or out of a whatever it might be, and then you make the decision. That all of those things are not founded in, you can't find it in the Quran, you can't find it in Hadith. Those are cultural myths that just were influenced by the idea of istikhara. What is supposed to happen is that you are going to, again, find things opening up for you or closing for you. I had my own experience with istikhara several times in my life, but there was one particular istikhara that I found myself really, really struggling with. And it was a decision that took a lot of time for me. It took actually a few years of my life to see the answer of istikhara. And that's another myth that I think a lot of people fall into, is thinking that when you make the dua of istikhara, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show you the answer immediately. Now, looking back, I can tell now with more clarity and less emotion around the decision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was showing me and was closing doors for me, but it was hard for me to understand. So the final decision didn't come until a long time has already passed. I had spoke to a mentor of mine who himself was an imam and just an incredible student of knowledge, and he gave me some insight into istikhara that I hadn't had before. And he basically said that when it comes to istikhara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tends to show us the answer to istikhara in a patterned way for us. So when we make istikhara, we're going to start to notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us the answer in ways that we will recognize. So when he said that, I started thinking back to all the other times that I'd made istikhara. I made istikhara about where to go to for undergrad. I made istikhara about where to apply to for PA school. I've made istikhara about, certain men who had asked for my hand in marriage. I'd made istikhara a lot in my life. I made istikhara about which jobs to take. And subhanAllah, there was one particular thing that every time the decision was, the end result of istikhara was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want me to go for this, I would get this incredible feeling of dis-ease. There was such an anxiety inside of me, but it wasn't normal anxiety. It was a very odd anxiety because everything could be perfect about the situation. And I'm someone who's very much willing to put in the time, put in the effort, put in the work. But despite it looking on the outside like this was an incredible decision for me to make, what I would find is that anxiety would just drive me to run away from the decision. And subhanAllah, every single time I listened to that anxiety and I ended up shutting down the decision, even when people are trying to convince me otherwise, even when people are trying to say that, hey, this is a really good decision for you, I found the end result was better than I ever could have expected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always replaced it with something better. SubhanAllah. It always was the end result that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was looking out for me and protecting me from something. And something I couldn't have planned for. So I say this and I share the story with you guys to tell you that when you're making the decision, especially when you start getting into the habit of istikhara, for things that are even medium-sized decisions, sometimes they're not huge life-changing things, but get into the habit so you can start to notice whatever that pattern is for you. Be thorough in your istikhara. Be thorough in the way that you make these decisions. Sit down and actually reflect on it. Make a lot of dua throughout it. And when it's time to make the decision, just go into that decision wholeheartedly, knowing, this is the thing that I'm going for, but also simultaneously trusting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to maneuver you through that. There's a certain level of divine intervention when it comes to istikhara that we can't explain. And as Muslims, we're very blessed because we have this understanding of the metaphysical world that majority of people on earth do not get to experience. So take that into account when you're making these decisions and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't going to forsake you in the decision. The next thing that I want to say is when it comes to decisions that are taking a long time, sometimes it feels like I'm praying istikhara, I'm doing it, but it's like I'm not getting an answer. Just know that sometimes the answer takes a minute to get there. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs you to go through the refinement process for you to get to whatever the end decision is, right? For the result to actually show. For you to finally realize Allah is blocking me from something or Allah is pushing me to something else. The next thing I will say, and this is because istikhara can be a very heart-wrenching thing for a lot of people. I completely understand. Know that sometimes the decision is not right for you, but it's not right for you at that moment in life, right? And perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to re-present you with the decision at a later time in life. Don't find yourself so all consumed with how much you want to control your life and what you want it to look like that you lose out on the opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you to go through that process of growth, to learn to, experience other things in life. And then He will bring to you whatever it was. He will bring it back to you, or He's going to bring that same decision back, but in another form. So I'll give the example of marriage. Perhaps it's someone that you desperately wanted, right? Perhaps it's someone you were working really hard. Sometimes it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closing that door and closing that chapter, but for a temporary time, for you guys to go your separate ways, actually go your separate ways, not, back and forth. Do your own thing, do life separately, and really see, is this a person that I actually want? And also to go through the time to do the character development and the personal self-improvement in order to be good for each other. And then perhaps later on down the line, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala represents that person to you and you're able to make that decision at that time. So what ends up, I don't know if you can hear the ice cream truck in the background. What ends up happening when you really put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is you are going to be taking steps that are going to bring you closer to the outcome that is going to be the absolute best for you, right? And you're not going to be wasting your time sitting there wondering one way or another, because you trust, I made the dua, I took the steps, and now I'm just like, I'm going to let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have it, and I'm going to continue on with my life doing the other things that I need to do, right? Whatever else your life consists of. I've seen people, subhanAllah, I've met people. The marriage example is one that I keep coming back to because it's one of the biggest reasons people discover the dua of Istikhara. It's when you're making a decision of who to marry. And it's unfortunate because I've seen so many people who just completely ignored the advice to pray Istikhara, or maybe they never even knew it was a thing and ended up in really disastrous situations when perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have shown them the way out had they prayed it. But I was saying that I know people who, at a certain time, they could not, for whatever reason. I'll give one example of a friend that I had who, she had someone who she really wanted to marry, and he really wanted to marry her. And he asked for her a few times, and her mother just said absolutely not. It was a cultural issue. And subhanAllah, I remember her just saying yeah, I completely gave up on the possibility that this would happen. And I just remember her being so heartbroken. But I appreciated her trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, 2 years later, somehow, some way, I don't know exactly the makings of it, but he asked for her hand again. And this time, her mom said yes. And now they are married. They've been married for, I want to say, 6 years or so. She has 2 daughters and they have another child on the way. So it ended up being a happy situation. I know another instance of 2 people who ended up, wanting so badly to get married, and it was the same thing. There was kind of a cultural issue as well. And you would think these people, so severely wanted this, and I knew both individuals, and I knew them to be really good people, and I knew that they would, they seemed like a good match, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't write it for them. SubhanAllah, the girl ended up getting married, and she's pregnant, and she's very happy in her relationship. And then the brother ended up, I'm not sure if he's married or engaged or what's going on with him, but he's obviously on a completely different path and on his own life. He's working, he has his own business, he's doing really well for himself. So that is really the big idea when it comes to Istikhara. You are going to think about the pros and cons of the situation, consult the people, pray, make the dua, and then go for it and just trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to see you through to the end. Don't beat yourself up. I know it can be very tormenting, but know just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not here to put you through a hard time. This is a refinement process. You guys, if this video is helpful to you, if it helped you just, understand a new tool Islamically, then I really ask you to hit the like button, go ahead and comment below and subscribe for more. It really helps me get this content to more people. And also, if you like the new setup, please let me know, inshallah. I'm very excited to have this new stand. It was a gift, actually. Thank you guys again, and assalamu alaikum.